Hello, everybody, it's Tim again here, another movie review. Just got out watching Avatar 2. I'll go ahead and say, as far as like James Cameron goes, I am a James Cameron fan. I like most of his stuff. I don't love it. I do love most of his stuff actually. But Avatar, the first one, is the one I don't love. Avatar, the first one, though, I did not hate. It was light on story. It had kind of a generic story that's pretty much like Dances with Wolves and Pocahontas. But I would give it a solid 3 out of 4. The first Avatar I thought was a good spectacle movie, but nothing great. And I never felt like it really needed a sequel. But for some reason, James Cameron just felt like dedicating his whole rest of his life to just doing these Avatar sequels. I have no idea why, when there's so much more the man can do. Like ever since like Titanic did so well, James Cameron has pretty much just like went completely mainstream and just focused on like these spectacle movies like Avatar and stuff like that because he keeps trying to repeat the success of Titanic, I guess, or something like that. It's just all about the spectacle now since Titanic. But Titanic, for what it was, it still had a lot of emotion to it and everything. And I like Titanic. I think Titanic is a better movie than both these Avatar flicks. To be honest, I think Avatar, the first one up until this point, was James Cameron's weakest movie. Not a bad movie by any means, and no director has a perfect track record. They just don't. But only like a good standard blockbuster movie. That's the thing. These Avatar movies have to be judged by like James Cameron standards. If this was just like some blockbuster director and I was just judging these as like standard blockbuster flicks, I'd probably really enjoy the first one and even like this one. But overall, having to look at these as James Cameron films, that first Avatar is a good 3 star out of 4, solid, fine spectacle movie. This one, I give it 2.5 out of 4. It's decent. I don't really like the movie. There's parts that I do like in it. In some ways, it's an improvement over part one. In other ways, it's weaker. But at the same time, I don't hate this film. This is a decent film, not counting like Piranha: The Spawning or whatever, which is like a film James Cameron worked on but didn't even finish when he was much younger. Not counting that, but counting like all of his like well-known films, I would say this is his weakest movie. It's not terrible. It's not terrible by any means. If you really love the first one, I think you will really enjoy this one. I think so. If you are a huge Avatar fan of the first film, I think you will have a lot of fun with this one. This is from people more like that. Instead of me as a movie reviewer, I always like to judge things like completely unbiasedly or unbiased and go into stuff and like just look at it and take it for what it is and examine it as a movie. There's some beautiful special effects in this. There are. The special effects, like for the design for the Navi or whatever, they seem more humanoid in this one. It feels like they've had a bit of a redesign. Overall, the special effects are of course better than what was in the first movie. I will say that one of the big problems with this movie is just way too overlong. There's just too much going on in this flick. Not so much too much going on, but there's more story here, but it's story that is more simple, that is like stretched out to like longer lengths, and it focuses more on character. Unlike the first film, which I did appreciate, but in other ways, like I said, it's weaker than the first film because it's elongated way too long. This movie's like 3 hours and what feels like 3 hours and something, but um, it's over long. This movie would work much better if it was shorter. There's sequences here and just parts of the movie that are just way too long. There's like a whole middle section of this movie that is just spent like exploring the water people of the Pandora planet or whatever, and it feels like something that should be on like a Disney Plus special at points, like something that should be made for like an Avatar TV show where they're like exploring the planet and all that. Like it doesn't feel like there's any driving force to the plot here, and that's one of the big problems. Like the humans just come back to Earth, and you got Stephen Lang's character who comes back, and I love Stephen Lang in the first one. I thought he was the best part as this asshole army guy. They bring him back here because they know he was so good in the first one, and here he's like put into a Navi body or whatever, or an Avatar, if you want to call it that. He's put into it. His memories and stuff are. He's pretty much cloned, and he's back being his old self again, just so they could get his character back. And I will say it is kind of silly that they made like a random clone of this military dude along with some other people who were in his troop. I really don't know why. It doesn't really explain it. But he's back though, and it's cool to have him back, and he does a good job here. Giovanni Ribisi's character I expected to show back up, but for some reason they not only brought him back in like a small cameo in like a scene that's supposed to take place like off camera during the first movie where he was like implanting his memories or putting them on a device or whatever so they could put it into this avatar body. Um, or when he was with Stephen Lang when Stephen Lang was doing that. Like Giovanni Ribisi was like in the background or whatever. But yeah, overall, I'd give this a 2.5 out of 4. It's decent. It's harmless. It's overlong though. This is not something I will watch like casually at all unless I'm having like a Cameron marathon. Like even when Avatar 3 comes out, like this really felt like Avatar 2 and 3, to be honest. But yeah, Avatar 3 needs to be shorter. That was one of the problems with this movie. It's just overlong. There's just and the plot there's not enough driving force to it to justify the length of the movie, and that's probably the biggest problem with it. Stephen Lang though is great here. He's really fun whenever he shows up. And the movie focuses a lot more on the kids of like Jake and everything. And there aren't too many kids after a while though, because the movie's so long. You start to learn their distinct personalities and all that, and start to adjust to them. Like there's like the middle kid or whatever, and the oldest kid who gets like the least amount of screen time or whatever. He's just kind of the token good kid or whatever, the favorite, and he ends up getting killed at the end. Of course, he's been set up for that. He's not on screen too much to where you can overly attach to him, and that's part of the point, because they don't want you to get too emotional to him, because they're saving that for the other kids, because they know they're going to end up killing this one off. And he gets killed at the end. And Zoe Saldana is great here. Her acting is like way better in scenes than the dude Sam Worthington that plays Jake or whatever. And it's not that Jake's bad, he just gets less to do here. He's just more of the token leader character, and the first one is more about his arc. I thought Sam Worthington was good and fine in that first Avatar. Here he's like given less to do. He's just kind of the token leader dude, but he's good and fine here. But Stephen Lang's the highlight of this, and they're like raising this human kid named Spider or whatever, nickname Spider. I forgot his real name. Maybe it was Miles or Brian or something or whatever. But anyway, he's supposed to be like Stephen Lang's kid. We never find out who his mother was, and there was no hint of Stephen Lang even having a kid in the first one, so he's just kind of randomly thrown in here. Eventually, he gets like abducted by Stephen Lang's Avatar character or whatever, or Navi character, I guess, who's like running around with him and all that, taking him with him on the human missions, and they're like poaching these whales and stuff so they can take these glands out of them to stop human aging on Earth. It's like, but that's not like a big part of the movie. It comes in like near like the middle of the second act or something, or towards the end of the second act, before it gets to like the third act climax, where the movie like really picks up. Like the whole middle section with learning the ways of the water people and all that is kind of fun. There's some fun stuff there, but it's just really stretched out and elongated and just starts to get boring. There's some cool like sequences though, where like with the middle boy or whatever like bonds with the whale, this renegade whale and all that, exiled whale, space whale. It's kind of neat. It like goes inside his mouth and bonds with him with their spur things or whatever that come out of their hair or whatever. But or barbs. But like I said, it's just really elongated in the middle, and Cameron's hoping that you'll be such a huge fan of Avatar, you'll just be like blown away by the special effects shots and all that, and just like the exploration of the planet. But it's not enough to like justify the runtime of the or not enough plot as well to, or not interesting enough as of a plot to justify the runtime of the movie. It just starts to wear thin really quick. But when it kicks back up in the climax or whatever, and the oldest kid gets killed, and Zoe Saldana is like, and she like takes the spider kid hostage or whatever, and is like, let my daughter go, talking to Stephen Lang, and she's like holding the knife blade to his throat or whatever, threatening to kill him if he kills their daughter as well. And that's one of the things or whatever, like Zoe Saldana's character starting to lose it towards the end because her son is killed, which is understandable. But at the same time, though, you would think that maybe they would play it up more of the spider kid having more of like a conflict of like, who does he go with, his dad, who's in the Navi body now, or does he like stay with Jake and them? But they never really play into it that much. Like you just get kind of the idea of it like surface level, and you get to see sequences where he's like kind of repulsed by what the humans are doing, of like how they're killing the whales or whatever, like just taking these enzyme things inside their bodies and just like wasting the whole creature and all that. And he just gets pushed away by the brutality of them. So they never really like play into like where he's leaning to the dark side or whatever. I thought they could have done much more with that. They just let the actor kind of like do eye glances and stuff like that, and you just kind of got to read off of him. But overall, he's good. He's fine here. He's just not really given much to chew on. By the end, though, of course, he saves Stephen Lang, who's like drowning or whatever, because Stephen Lang decides to let Jake's daughter go, so they'll let Spider go, and he ends up saving him or whatever after Jake and Stephen Lang get in a fight, which is a pretty cool fight. It's kind of fun. But of course, Stephen Lang manages to like finally lose, and he's like drowning in the water, and he gets saved by the Spider, his son Spider or whatever, who's nicknamed Spider. But and he's like, "Come with me, son," and of course his son's like, "No, Dad, I gotta go back with the Navi," and he does this like stupid cat hissing sound or whatever, which got real old in this movie. For a little while, I was like, "Hey, it's kind of neat," and they're making them travel and stuff. And after a while, they kept doing it. I was like, "This shit's getting old." Another thing that got old is how they keep trying to like play the Navi as like the Native American type people and all that, and they kept going wah, 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 and yelling over and over. That shit got a little old too, because they just did it over and over and over. But yeah, by the time you get to the end and like the Jake's son is dead and all that, they're like putting his body, burying it at sea, and he goes down in the water and like connects down there with I guess the spirit of the planet or whatever. It's like a tree or something. I don't remember. It's something from the first movie. But he's like connecting with it, and they're like seeing the spirit of his son at different ages and all that. And he's like talking to his dad, like, "Why are you sad, Dad?" and all that. That was heartwarming. That was sad. That connected with me. Um, But yeah, then after that, it just kind of ends, and so it's like, leaving room for Avatar 3 for the bad guy to come back once again. It's like, you're not really, it doesn't really feel like they fulfilled like a full plot and story by the end of this movie. This just kind of feels like a middle chapter to another more fully 100% fulfilled movie. But yeah, overall, 2.5 out of 4. Decent movie, not bad, good special effects. Does it deserve to make like $1 billion? No, not in my opinion. But yeah, overall it's decent. If you love the first movie, you will really like this. Personally, I really don't get why people really love these movies or why these movies make billions of dollars. They're just spectacle flicks, and I get spectacle can be a lot of fun and all that, but for James Cameron movies, I feel like you need something more. But yeah, overall, this is decent. It's not bad, but it's not really worth seeing either, unless you're like a huge fan of the first Avatar. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again.